session. Before I begin, however, I'd like to acknowledge that NIDA, here at NIDA, we learn and tell stories on the lands of the Bidjigal, Gadigal, Darawak and Darawals people. I'd like to acknowledge elders past and present, and also to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land, from the mountains to the sea and the waterways and the skies as well. So thank you for that. So the MFA Cultural Leadership is what we're here to talk about this afternoon. This is the course information for a master's degree that equips folks who already work in the arts and cultural sector with skills and expertise to take them to the next level of their career or to help change the future of the arts landscape in Australia and beyond. My name's Amanda McDonald-Crowley. I'm the course leader of the Cultural Leadership program here at NIDA. And what I think is really interesting about this program is that it really is one of the most interdisciplinary programs of its kind anywhere in the world, actually. So we draw students from all across the arts and cultural sectors, from policy to government to, obviously, theatre and visual arts and the library sector. I'm joined today by two current students, actually, although Amelia is about to graduate. Amelia Harris will graduate next year and has, because of life circumstances, is taking a little longer to graduate than others in her cohort. But Amelia cut her teeth in the rough and tumble of the television sector, but it was in theatre that she really found her love and her true heart. She's been a stage manager at several venues across Sydney and was then various roles at Darlinghurst Theatre Company, including as the artistic director of Darlinghurst Theatre Company. And she's currently working as a creative producer at the Inner West Council. As a queer artist, she understands the role that contemporary arts can play in igniting radical change. And change making and theories of change is something that we really focus on in the course, so I'm sure Amelia will talk to that too. Monica Scaglierini, I managed to wrangle onto the panel at the last minute because one of our alum panellists dropped out. Monica's actually head of theatres here at NIDA, so it's really exciting to have her both as a staff and a student here at NIDA. Monica also cut her teeth in the corporate sector in Europe, working across a range of different industry sectors. And then in Australia, did a career shift to move some of those management skills that she had from the corporate sector into the arts and worked with the Italian Cultural Institute, and now as head of theatres here at NIDA. And here at NIDA, she not only facilitates all of the fantastic access to the productions that we've seen here today for NIDA productions, but also brings in folks from the arts and educational sectors too, to make sure that our space is accessible to the broader community. So in our approach in this course, really challenges you to question and debate the role of the arts and the cultural sector in our society and your place in the sector. It's designed for professionals who are already working in the arts or cultural sectors, although sometimes those folks are working arts adjacent. We have folks out of the who work in government or in the public service who are interested in culture and the arts. So it's we do have folks who are what you might describe as arts adjacent, but people who really want to facilitate change and new leadership models. Our cohorts reflect the diversity and intersectionality of lived experience in Australia from a range of different sectors, as I've outlined. The course is delivered part-time over a 30-month period. 80% of the learning happens online, with folks coming together 3 or 4 times a year for intensives, primarily at NIDA here on campus, but we are looking at having off-site intensives too at different locations around the country. So we describe the course as providing an opportunity or a framework to develop folks into transformational, really future-focused leaders in the sector. You will engage with future-focused leaders. We invite a huge range of really fantastic industry professionals in to come and meet with our students, to run workshops with our students and to collaborate with them. We partner with practitioners and innovators from all sorts of different institutions and sectors. It's a really collaborative learning environment that we encourage, and we really encourage folks to explore what it means to be a leader in our creative community. As I said, the sorts of folks who should apply are, generally speaking, mid-career professionals who are working. Most of our students work full-time in the arts and cultural sector. Some are freelance, but a majority do hold down full-time jobs. We really encourage people who are motivated to drive future-focused change in evolving social, cultural, environmental, and in ecological ecosystems to effectively foster inclusion and diversity in arts and leadership, as I indicated, from a range of different sectors outlined here on the slide. In the first year of study, and Monica can talk to that because she's completed her first year of study. Monica's currently a second-year student. Students study leadership and governance from a range of different perspectives. A really powerful course that gives you a whole insight into what governance looks like in the non-for-profit and the for-profit sectors. We study communications and advocacy. We're at a theatre school. You know, NIDA is phenomenal in transferring those skills. So how do we communicate effectively? What skills do you need to do that? And what kind of advocacy tools do you need to tell stories? Cultural policy and practice is taught by Kim Spinks, who's a total policy wonk and is phenomenal, and she brings in leaders from the advocacy field, from the screen sector, from the arts sector, from environmental justice, from Indigenous perspectives, to bring folks in to understand policy across Australia. And practice-based research. Practice-based research is a course that's delivered across all 3 of our MFA subjects, but it really does a deep dive into what research looks like for practitioners, for those of us who make art and make situations happen. In our second year, we have a 4-year subject called Cultural Transformation and Sustainability. It's a really deep dive into using the research skills that you've developed to really think about what kind of change you want to make in the art and culture sector. And evaluation methodology for cultural leaders, which is really diving deep into ideas of really strange screen stuff happening. A deep dive into thinking about, it's taught by social impact specialists who really help us to evaluate how we tell the stories, how we tell people the change that we're making in the arts and culture sector. In the final 6 months of study, folks go off to do an international case study on their own. That really is a research project that they do with an international organisation. It's bespoke, and my colleagues and I work with students really closely to try and find just the right research project for them to do and where to do it. And a subject that we've recently introduced called Cultural Futures Lab, that is using all of the skills that you've acquired, especially through cultural transformation and sustainability in the research. It's a collaborative capstone project where students together create an event or a symposium that addresses research with the public. There are 3 to 4 intensives a year, as I mentioned. There are first and second year cohorts who are studying alongside one another. As I've said, dozens of guest lectures and speakers, and 4 intensives a year in February, May, July and October next year. So the capstone project, here are some of the examples of places that folks have done capstone projects recently. Last year, one of our students did their capstone at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in New York, and another worked at the Art Science Museum in Singapore. So it's across the world, all sorts of really fascinating places, from community arts organisations to some of the big major established theatres around the world, to the Talking Stick Festival, which is a First Nations festival in Vancouver in Canada. For that, you really propose a research idea for that you want to undertake, and you work alongside a leader in that organisation to realise it. As I've mentioned, the Cultural Futures Lab, the final 6 months, a public-facing, practice-based research output that you develop collaboratively with your peers in the course. I've got a couple of testimonials here from some of our former alum before I open up to questions with Amelia and Monica. Jax Compton is a phenomenal alum of the program who says, my elders teach me the importance of finding a passion, finding a purpose, and using what I've been blessed with as a member of my generation to have a positive impact on the next. She pursued her MFA in cultural leadership in order to continue her cultural journey courageously, which she continues to do. We bring her in too to talk with students from time to time. Joel McGuinness was doing the program when he started working at Geelong Arts Centre, where he was building a brand new complex and used the skills that he acquired while he was doing the course to literally implement them, building out the Geelong Arts Centre. Joel's gone on, he's now the officer in creative, it doesn't say it here, he's actually now the head of audience engagement and collaboration at the State Library of Victoria, actually. Sammy Moynihan is a community development cultural practitioner working in the ACT, and Sammy says that the degree had profound impact on his career development and artistic outlook. He often grapples with finding a balance between making change and allowing change to make him. He also received the Outstanding Achievement in Cultural Leadership Award when he graduated, and that took him off to do an additional international placement. So they're some of our phenomenal alum. Here's how to apply. You can apply online. The two key things you need to know is that we want a detailed CV, up to 3 pages. It can be longer, but the CV is really to tell us what experience you're going to bring to the degree and what you want to get out of it. And your personal statement is really the most important thing to submit with your application, is why do you want to do this degree? Why is now the right time in your career to be undertaking the degree? And applications are open now. You can apply until the 13th of October. So I will open up to questions from the floor. Does anybody have a question, perhaps, of Amelia and Monica about what it's like to study in the program?
I'm coming from, I guess, a TV producing background as well, and I just was interested in, I guess, the different art forms the program could open up for students.
Right. So what art forms we open up to for students?
Yeah.
So, and you come from a television production field. You know, NIDA as a school is obviously a school of dramatic arts, and we lean quite heavily into wanting to support screen practitioners too. And production skills, I'm going to say we have had a few producers. Which producer? Who?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my cohort we had a representation from many art forms. Certainly my experience in telly as well, I found this to be it's kind of like a base foundation for all sort of cultural leadership. And I feel like the leadership of being a producer in screen and being the leadership of being a director in a room or leading a large-scale arts organisation, the foundation of that is it's the same. It's your value set. And then what I found was really helpful about this course is that takes that value set and allows you to put some framework around it. So when you're trying to work within your practice in television producing, you have a framework so it's not just about sort of moving through that and trying to find out how you can be the best leader. So I certainly think that it is valuable for all different art forms.
Yes, I can add that last year in particular, when we were studying cultural policy and practice, we had a valuable guest speaker, was the executive director of Screen Australia, that was a very valuable contribution, and she shared with us all the programming cycle, all the priorities and imperatives that they have to go through when they program, and the incredible international competition that Screen Australia has to deal with, in particular also the difficult discourse and negotiation and interaction with the government, obviously because of the government. So that was a very, very valuable insight into the filming industry.
I can also add that I feel like in the arts sector, we're often very siloed. You know, I'm a screen person, I'm a theatre person. There aren't very many opportunities for that to be an open and fair, like even ground. And you learn so much from someone, as a screen person, from someone who's working in community theatre. You may not interact with them on a regular basis. You may not get to sit in a room and discuss policy with them, and the way that they interact in this whole other siloed industry is really eye-opening, and you can take that back into your industry and shift things a little bit differently. So I certainly would encourage people to burst out of your silo.
Do we have any questions online? As somebody who's about to graduate, Amelia, what were some of the most valuable things for you in participating in this program?
I think when I started the program, I was working as an artistic director, so I was an executive to a company and working directly to a board. No one taught me how to do that. No one taught me about governance. I didn't really understand the sort of bells and whistles, even, to be honest, my full responsibility that I was carrying on my shoulders. And I came into the course and came into the governance course and had my eyes opened, and I put that work directly into practice immediately. I had a better understanding, a more in-depth understanding of what was possible, what my layers of responsibility were, and what also I could achieve for the company. So one of the most amazing things is that you are learning immediately, and because you are pitching this to mid-career artists and practitioners, we're working, and you can take the skills and you put them immediately to practice, and you are. It's not a long term. It is a long term, but you're also immediately a better leader. And there are also part of the other, as you touched on, the cultural policy. I had never done a deep dive on cultural policy, but we work to cultural policies. We all do in all three layers of government. We just might not know about it. But once you have a better understanding of the systems that we may want to change or rail against, you have a better chance of doing so. So I found Kim Spinks is an icon, and we are privileged to be in her learning room. And I've now that I've moved into a government role, I put that into practice on a daily basis as well.
Monica, you've done the foundational courses in your first year, the governance and the leadership and the policy and now some advocacy. What's the learning journey for you moving into the second year of your study, where you're diving into the cultural transformation and sustainability with those foundational skills?
Obviously that you you understand the world of, you understand the sector, so you learn to work in the performing arts after the typical journey is that you are an art practitioner, or like myself, I transition from the corporate sector, and some foundational competencies you learn. You have to teach yourself those, because there is no any educational pathway that equips you, and governance is fundamental. Cultural policy is fundamental. When we started the course, we were in the middle of the controversy of the Cine Theatre Company, for instance. And we realize it's obvious that we live in a society that is so much polarized, so much fragmented, that what was 5-10 years ago normal and acceptable, like protesting or showing your political beliefs in a public environment was considered probably normal or acceptable. There was more tolerance. Yeah, controversial, but controversy is what we live or we have to deal with in the arts. Now, it's exactly the opposite, because nowadays, if you embrace or you want to express your opinion, well, you show or you can be considered somebody who is endorsing a terrorist group. So the environment is completely changed. And this, so the dilemma of what cultural organizations should prioritize in terms of values, artistic expression or the creation of an environment free from discrimination and racism. Yeah, we are in the middle of that, and going through the governance, well, you start getting better equipped of, in particular, how you can set a process where you don't panic, you go through it, you know which are the tools and the leadership tactics and strategies that you can use, and probably you can, instead of falling into that controversy and with all the aftermaths and consequences of board members resigning, or the recent one that has affected Australia, the Creative Australia, well, you set a process and maybe you end up being more stronger than before. So this is the huge difference. It's this empowerment that gives you a good compass to deal with difficult situations, difficult conversations, and yeah, essentially it's this.
Thank you. Do we have any final questions from the floor?
I'd like to ask how the curriculum has evolved over the years, and where do you see it could evolve into in the future, based on the change we're all living through in the world? Yeah. Where can we add further value?
Where can we add further value, and how has the program evolved?
Yes.
So the program has been around since 2016, I believe, was the first cohort of students, and one of the things we led with was the cultural transformation and sustainability subject. We went right to the heart of what the course believed in, and feedback from students was, actually, we'd like some foundational skills and skill sets before we dive into that. So how the course is delivered has changed a little over time. NIDA is a university college, and therefore we need to self-accredit all of our courses. So every 5 to 7 years we do a really deep dive and a review of what's called a course review and renewal process, and we've just gone through that process over the last year with all of NIDA. So that's why we've introduced this new subject, the Cultural Futures Lab. That was as a result of work that I was doing with peer learning that I was doing in my community of practice here at NIDA, about how do we find opportunities, whilst all of our students do realise programs for a public all of the time in their jobs, the risks you can take when you're doing that as a student are maybe a bit more profound. So we're kind of interested in leaning into allowing folks to take risk in presenting work and ideas to a public as a student, at NIDA. We're interested definitely in more collaboration across the disciplines at NIDA. We do quite a lot of that already. NIDA it's practice-based learning here, so we really do like to lead with practice-based thinking, and even in a cultural leadership role where the folks who are participating in this program really are the people who make culture happen or make the arts happen. They're not the makers of the art per se, although they are. They're collaborators. They collaborate with artists to make work happen in the world. Where do you think things need to change? Where would you like to see growth in the program to the alum or current students?
It's interesting because, yes, it is a very divisive world, and you've given really two examples of where the cultural leadership is designed and to thrive. I feel like skilling up our leaders to be able to cope with those moments and understanding cultural safety, psychological safety, physical safety, but in the whole framework of what is actually possible, governance, policy, the layers of government. There's so many different tools and levers available to us that we can create spaces that are safer. We can facilitate intersectional storytelling in an authentic way. We can do this work, but it is hard work and it takes time, and do less better. And if you're going to do less better, skilling up as many of our leaders, from directors to all levels of producers and management across all of Australia, they're sitting in rooms and there's an availability. So I think everybody being able to really understand the cultural dexterity and the complexities of the world, and feeling that you can have those uncomfortable conversations will only make our spaces safer and our stories better.
And we do have uncomfortable conversations. We actually have specifically sessions in our intensives that are called uncomfortable conversations. And I was having a chat with one of your peers recently, and they've implemented uncomfortable conversations in their organisation. Like, how do we have these conversations in our own organisations to be able to improve the world through the arts? Because we know that the arts can make a difference in the world, and the role of this course is to skill folks to be able to do that. And on that, I do think also one of the strengths that I see in the course is the peer learning model, that the students learn not only from the phenomenal cultural leaders that we bring in from the outside of the sector, but they learn from one another, because it's such a really fabulous, diverse group of people. And do you want to talk to the peer learning model a little bit?
Yes, this is actually one of the aspects that makes us really looking forward to the intensive, is the quality conversation and collaboration with our peers, which is really invaluable, and it's a part of the learning. It's a complementary component which we continue keeping also outside the intensive, and supporting each other towards this journey, but it has already become, I think, a strong professional network that we will rely on even in the future. And it's fundamental, because each of us leave our perspectives very much absorbed in what we do, and when we have conversation, we open up to the many perspectives that we are not aware of, and immediately we become better leaders. It's just this building awareness journey also, not just by reading, but just interacting with great professionals in the field and understanding each other's concerns, and proposing each other's solutions. Also the group works are really important, because it's the way we synthesize everything, trying to bridge all our differences, and at the end we need to come up with a consensual solution, and that is already a good practice that from learning into the real world, it's already good. I mean, it's a learning curve. With an immediate utility. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add that we haven't addressed, Amelia, Monica? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Would you mind talking to some of the alumni, and maybe even some of the current students, and some of the career pivots that they have gone through from doing the course, and some of the career opportunities that they've found themselves in since doing the course?
I've done one. Yes. I've done a career pivot. So the question was, have some of the alumni done a career pivot from doing the course? I think that's something, and Amanda and I were just talking about this, it draws people to the course who I think have a heart for social impact and advocacy, and I think that there's the bedrock of that. And I came from a theatre making background and a television background, and I spent a lot of time in the course and realised that actually what most fills my cup is community impact and community engagement and audience engagement, and working really directly with community. So that's very much part of why I have taken a career pivot into local government, where I'm working really directly for and serving a community. It's my community, the Inner West community, and there has the beautiful, colourful community that I serve now, and I have the opportunity to, really directly assist and bring up with me some of the artists and the creatives and the visual artists. So I've kind of pivoted. I'm now doing public art, and there's a whole bunch of new things there, but it also still has the same bedrock. It has the same bedrock of work, and I do feel from my cohort there has been others who have done a similar pivot where we're looking at ways to take the skills that we've learnt and more proactively put them back into community in perhaps a different way than a traditional art-making process.
There are some people who are in the positions that they foundationally were setting up when they came into the course, like someone like Marinda Donnelly, who's taken Black Dance on to be a really phenomenal organisation and also embraced a co-leadership model in a really interesting way. So that's somebody who's taken what she learned out of the program to strengthen the organisation that she founded and believes in. I talked about Joel McGuinness moving from, he went from visual arts to theatre when he came to NIDA, and now he's moved into the State Library, again in an engagement role, so that kind of community and audience engagement role, that tactical way of ensuring that you're engaging audiences is really important. Nate Gilks, who is part of Amelia's cohort, is a practitioner in music theatre in all sorts of different ways, and he's recently taken on a role at Opera Australia. It's the first time ever that Opera Australia have had a head of learning engagement and audience participation, and I had a phone call with him just 2 days ago because we were on something else that he was talking about, and he said he's just developed the strategy and he couldn't have done it without the skills that he learned in every single subject that he did here. And then he went on to describe to me a project that he's about to do with Mel Maldo, who's also an alum of the program, and Mel, as a result of her study in the course, was appointed as the head of the Pacifica collection at the Australian Museum. And now Nate and Mel are collaborating on a project where Opera Australia's orchestra will be performing inside of the museum with a whole bunch of Pacifica musicians in October. I'm actually really looking forward to that event. So there's a few examples. Thanks for the question.
I think it opens up possibilities, the course as well. I think it showcases, because you get to have peer-to-peer learning with other people who are working across sector, and suddenly, if you've been in your silo, suddenly you realise that there are so many more opportunities out there. So I would not be surprised if there were lots of people who pivot, because it's an opportunity to do so, which is always very exciting.
Thanks so much for all of the great questions. Thanks for joining us online, for all of those folks who are online. This is a really great opportunity for us to record these sorts of conversations, and if anybody wants to reflect back on it, this will be going up onto the NIDA website shortly. Applications are now open for the MFA in Cultural Leadership, so head to the NIDA website. Thanks everybody for coming, and thank you so much, Amelia and Monica, for joining me in the conversation. Really appreciate it.